champion of opposite marriage denounces his advocacy for the opposite of marriage. The party that once declared against or any vote against military funding was a vote against the troops just voted against the troops. Our number one story, Republican hypocrisy ends up costing Republicans. Today, Senator John Ensign of Nevada resigning from his leadership post as chairman of the Republican Policy Committee. This after yesterday's revelation. What happens in Vegas gets disclosed at a late afternoon news conference.
Last year, I had an affair.
Senator Ensign acknowledging he had a consensual extramarital affair with a former aide who just so happened to be married to another former aide. He apparently likes staff Christmas parties nice and awkward.
If there was ever anything that I could take back in my life, this would be it.
Or might it be the day during the Lewinsky controversy in which he said it had erased President Clinton's, quote, credibility and called it an embarrassing moment for the country. And while Senator Ensign is left to wallow in his own infidelity, ooh, look, a kitty. This morning, the House Republicans rolled out their health care plan, all 4 pages of it, lower health care expenses, fewer bureaucrats, and a lot less numbers. As with their rival budget, the Republicans ballyhooed a health care plan without announcing what it would cost. House Republicans, who once said voting against funding for the troops was betraying them, also voted against the $106 billion war funding legislation passed in the House anyway. All but 5 Republicans voted against the troops because in the bill there was also a $5 million increase for the International Monetary Fund to help aid countries during the global financial crisis. Time now to call in MSNBC political analyst, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist of the Washington Post, Eugene Robinson. Gene, good evening.
Evening to you, Keith.
Well, just to round this out, John Boehner said, including that money for the IMF was politicizing the bill. Now, they used to put everything they could find into the military bills, didn't they?
They sure did. I mean, now they are shocked to find any sort of politicizing of legislation. I mean, you know, where are standards? This selective amnesia, or this feigned selective amnesia that the Republicans have about how they ran this city and this country for all those years is extraordinary. I don't think anybody's particularly buying it, but this seems to be, you know, their strategy, and they're going to double down on it, I guess.
Why aren't the Democrats out there broadcasting the fact that House Republicans, just to use their own terminology, the terminology of hypocrisy again here, that they just voted against the troops?
You know, that beats me, actually. I was up on the Hill today, and what I was hearing from Democrats was more astonishment, and you could understand this, really, but 5 Republicans actually voted for it. Given the sort of no drumbeat that we've heard from the Republicans recently, that was, I guess, seemed like the headline. But I would agree with you that would seem to be a point that Democrats might want to emphasize, seeing as how voting against the troops is equivalent to treason. One wonders why one hasn't heard more about that.
Well, we'll hear more when those 5 Republicans who voted yes will be beaten severely by either Boehner or Cantor. Over to the Senate and Mr. Ensign. Why do Republicans, I mean, the Democrats might stray out of fidelity with perhaps the average American percentage of doing that, but very few of them ever carried off this family values game. But the Republicans, it seems as if every 6 months or so, somebody gets caught having no values at all. Why does this, not only does it happen, why does it keep happening?
And it will keep happening, Keith, and the reason is that you have to assume that Democrats and Republicans are going to stray into infidelity at roughly the same rate. But one party sets itself up as the arbiter of morality in America and the setter of standards and decries the licentiousness of the Democrats and so forth. And so once the party takes that attitude, then, you know, the odds play themselves out, and so these eruptions happen, so to speak, and it always blows up into a huge embarrassment. And Ensign is just the latest in a string. I mean, you and I have done this story before.
No, I know. and we did that other story before too. Now it's the GOP health care plan, which they rushed out, and waved banners, and look, here it is. Look at it, 4 pages. Now you'll notice there are no actual financial figures in here. how can you, I mean, don't you have to, if it's going to cost less, don't you even have to at least include one total number at the bottom, let alone maybe 350 different numbers somewhere?
One would think. But if, if the Republican idea of health reform is not to do health reform, then, which it seems to be, and just keep the same system and say, gee, we hope it gets better, then you don't really have any numbers to throw out there. It is ironic, however, because that they are in the middle of this huge push to try to tar the Democratic plan on the basis of cost, saying this is going to cost too much, we're in a recession, how could you think of this, you're going to raise taxes, and all of that, and that's a legitimate line of attack. But then to come out with your own, and I put it in quotes, plan,
yes,
and not to put any figures on it, it tends to rob the whole effort of a certain credibility, at least the way I see it, and I wonder if other people won't see it the same way.
Well, the Ernie Kovacs quote comes to mind: the money means nothing. The money is nothing, therefore the money means nothing. Gene Robinson of the Washington Post and of MSNBC, when we're lucky enough to have him. Thank you, Gene.
Good night, Keith.